There's a theory in cultural studies about communicative memory. It says that as a collective, we really only remember the last 3 generations, about 80 years. Anything older than that starts to fall off a cliff into a mythical past. When we think of occult history, we usually land on the big names. Aleister Crowley, the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians. But in that dark abyss between the 18th century and today, there's a ghost. A secret society so influential that it practically designed the blueprint for modern Western magic. Yet it's been almost entirely erased from our everyday conversation. They were called the Asiatic Brethren. Tonight, I want to take you back to 1781. I want to show you the order that bridged the gap between ancient heresy and modern mysticism. A group that sat at the intersection of Jewish Kabbalah, Christian Theosophy, and the radical underground of the Enlightenment. On paper, their name was a mouthful. The Knights and Brethren of St. John the Evangelist of Asia and Europe, founded in Vienna by a Bavarian officer named Hans Heinrich von Ecker und Eckhoffen. They were a schism from the more conservative Gold and Rosy Cross. Don't let the Asia part confuse you. In the 18th century, Asia was just a code for the Orient, specifically Palestine and the Levant. The Asiatic Brethren claimed their teachings came from an ancient hidden lineage in the East. What made them truly radical, and frankly dangerous for the time, was that they were the first Masonic order to officially open their doors to Jewish members. In a Europe defined by rigid religious segregation, the Asiatic Brethren were trying to build a syncretic bridge. They wanted to unite the cross and the menorah under the banner of a new mystical science. To understand the soul of the order, we have to look at its fuel. The Asiatic Brethren didn't just study standard Kabbalah. They were deeply entwined with the most controversial, heretical movement in Jewish history, Sabbateanism and Frankism. And don't worry, I'm going to talk about the leader of these movements later on. But what matters now is the current they brought to the Asiatic Brethren. This was a heretical Kabbalah. It was built on the idea that in a broken world, the way to find the divine was through strange acts, sometimes even breaking traditional religious laws to liberate the sparks of light trapped in the darkness. The Asiatic Brethren took these intense, almost dark concepts and translated them into a German Masonic framework. They focused on the Klipoth, the shells of evil that inhabit the human constitution, and taught that the practitioner's job was a messianic one, to personally descend into the shadows of their own psyche to achieve salvation. This was a theosophy of the flesh, a belief that the divine must be realized through physical ritual and the mastery of the rational mind. Now, here's where the conspiracy theories start getting interesting. The Asiatic Brethren weren't just an island. They were actually a part of a massive, tangled web of 18th century radicalism. Before the Asiatic Brethren were founded, their creator's earlier order, the Order of the Wheel and Golden Cross, played a direct role in the birth of Adam Weishaupt's Bavarian Illuminati. These groups were breathing the same air, sharing the same members, and obsessed with the same goal, shifting the consciousness of Europe away from the suffocating control of the Catholic Church. But the influence didn't stop when the lodges closed their doors in the 1790s. Certain historians argue that the Asiatic Brethren are the missing link. Their specific grade system, their blend of alchemy and Kabbalah, their Oriental mythos, traveled through the 19th century like a slow-moving underground river. Eventually, the water resurfaced in the 1880s when the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn took form. When you look at the Golden Dawn's rituals, or even the later works of Aleister Crowley, you aren't just looking at Victorian inventions, you're looking at the DNA of the Asiatic Brethren, refined and repackaged for a new age. Beyond the secret handshakes and the alchemical symbols, the Asiatic Brethren had a massive, silent impact on society. They stood at a crossroads. One side was the old world of religious dogma, the other was the cold, emerging world of the Enlightenment, and the scientific method. The Brethren tried to occupy the space in the middle. They argued that you could be a man of science and a man of spirit at the same time. By allowing Jews and Christians to sit at the same table in a secret environment, they acted as a laboratory for social integration long before it was accepted in the public. They were engineering the human state of being, trying to find a language for the soul that didn't rely on the dead power of the Orthodox churches. Their legacy is the very idea of Western esotericism as we know it today, a syncretic, individualistic path towards the divine that values direct experience over blind faith. The Asiatic Brethren disappeared quickly. By the end of the 18th century, their diplomas were being burned in the streets of Vienna, sending clouds of stinking smoke over the neighborhoods as members scrambled to hide their tracks. But you can't burn an idea. The next time you see a tarot card, or read a book on modern magic, or even hear a debate about the science of the soul, remember the Asiatic Brethren. They are the secret architects of the modern occult. We might have forgotten their name, but we are still living in the house they built.